some name server that's running on some pirated PC at probably one of your mother's houses, an attack using various methods, and it's running a name server and it shouldn't be. And in that case, you don't know what IP address the web server is going to be at. You don't know what domain name you're going to use, but you're absolutely sure they're going to use a certain name server IP address in order to glue it all together to make that attack succeed. So here we'll have the ability to poison things based on the IP address of a name server. And similarly, the domain name of a name server. And even though we've added all of that, we've still not added an ability to remap an Linux domain into an ad, because we're a non-profit public benefit company and we think that's bad. I want to talk a tiny bit more about this, even though I see some eyes glazing over. There are 13 root name servers. I know this because I operate one of them. There are 13 name servers for .com. I'm not sure how many name servers there are for .my. I apologize for not having done my homework. Chances are that in your cache, in the cache for a recursive DNS server, you only used one of those name server addresses to populate something. So if you have data for, let's say, www.google.com, I'm sure that you only talk to one root name server to learn about .com. You only talk to one com server to learn about google.com. And you only talk to one Google name server to learn about www.google.com. In other words, the fact that there's more than one server really only comes into play if the first one doesn't answer, and the first one usually does answer. The poisoning capability we're adding in the next version of RPZ does not care which one you actually used. So if there are a whole bunch of potential name server IP addresses or IP version 6 addresses or name server names that are things that you might use as a backup path to fill your cache with certain data, then we will still trigger it on the backup. So you don't necessarily have to list every possible name server address in order to protect people from bad content that could be represented by that name server. So, recapping, we will not be publishing content, except we might. Let me explain. There's a new worm virus botnet, I'm not sure how we're going to categorize it yet, called Stuxnet. Perhaps you've read about it. And it uses a DNS control mechanism, and it uses about one unique domain name per, not one unique per second. It's a different one per second, but there's a lot of duplicates through the day. So I think it's around 1,000 names a day. And they are spread across 5 different top-level domains. It's possible that those 5 top-level domain holders will all decide that they're going to block this. The trouble is there's no end in sight. So when you start blocking this, you're kind of, you're either signing up to keep blocking it until the end of time, because that's how long one of these botnets is going to last. At least configuring isn't shrunk at all in the years we've been launching it. So you'll either sign up to block it in perpetuity, which is an unbounded cost for you, or you will sign up to block it until you lose interest or change your mind, which is a PR disaster for you later. So either way, the decision to block it is expensive. Now, as an enterprise operator, network operator, or even as an ISP, you can't really count on VeriSign, the .com people, in this example, to block all of the names that Stuxnet might use inside of .com in perpetuity. I mean, maybe they will do it. VeriSign has some very smart people, and they often try and do the right thing. But maybe they won't. And so, if you're doing risk management at the enterprise level, and you're trying to explain to an insurance man exactly what are the risks to your business and how you manage them, if the possibility that one of your users is going to contact one of those domain names could then cause you to import an even more dangerous variant of some malware that could then destroy your network or destroy data on your SMB servers, you need some risk management. You can't count on people you don't have contracts with to do that for you. And this is a way that I think we could start to see people manage these risks internally, because if you are able to buy a subscription to a DNS reputation provider, you'll have a contract with them, and that contract will specify exactly what the damages are and limitations, liabilities, and all the rest if they don't protect you from certain types of attacks. You can show that contract to your insurance man. So as we continue to try to integrate the internet into the world's economy and into human society, choices like this will be made, and frankly, it would be much cheaper in terms of the aggregate effort expended on a global basis if 5 TLD holders would just block these names. But since there's no contractual path for risk management there, it might be, although not cheaper, it might be better to have 500,000 recursive name server operators each decide to solve this problem on their own. And sooner or later, we will all be solving problems like this on our own, because the domain name is the sort of the common touch point. Everything uses it. No web transaction and very few non-web transactions can take place until DNS has first rendered a name into an address. Certainly, if you see spam, if you get spam that doesn't use domain names and URLs and go straight to IP addresses, then spam assassins can kick that right out. They'll never even receive that email. That's already being filtered for you by the spam assassin rules that you're already running. They have to use a domain name. And so the only way that we're going to start getting less spam, especially the bad forms of spam that are trying to cause you to click on something that will affect you, is if we can find a way to poison these domain names en masse. So we did this because we're the Bind people. Bind has an 85% market share, and that's down a bit. I know that we have Microsoft in the field now, as well as well-known. Unbound is popular, Power DNS is popular. So there are some other implementers out there, but at 85% market share, if we do this, then it's widely available. And if it's widely available, then another 15%, in order to keep their market share from shrinking, are going to have to implement it also. So I'm not going to put this through the IETF process. I'm not going to ask for an RFC on this. Because if I did, then because of the way the IETF works, we would simply argue about it for 10 years and then produce something that might not even have the same target as what we did now. So that realized madness, especially for me. So I don't have to. We're the big dog on this block. If we implement this, everybody will implement it. And that's a power that is best used wisely. Right? If you too often say, I'm the big dog, I want everybody to do it my way, then people start to worry about you. But this is relatively non-controversial if we're the ones doing it. Right? People can tell that we're not monetizing it, we're not trying to hurt the world, we're not trying to force a change in the way everything operates. We're just trying to up-level a certain capability. So this, I think, counts as a wise use of our powers. It would be extremely controversial inside of the IETF. I know that a lot of countries have got rules, if not outright laws, against blocking things based on domain names or based on IP address. This looks like a challenge to network neutrality. Trigger a whole lot of people at the EFF and elsewhere to say, hey, wait a minute, think about the ways this could be abused. In particular, somebody asked me, in fact, somebody asked me yesterday, is this something that would help in censorship if the government was doing things to keep its population from being able to see certain things? And the Great Firewall in China was mentioned. And I said, well, yeah, but the countries that are doing this already have much better tools than this, and so I'm not really changing that game at all. Now, when I said that we will not be producing RPZ data, I've reconsidered that. I'm starting to think that Stuxnet is not going to sue me, and that I'm may have the ability to create content. At least one response policy zone will be available free of charge that would only contain these generated names for these botnets that come by from time to time. And that'd be a wonderful technology demonstration for us, both to show sort of this is how you make a zone, this is how you, if you want to subscribe to something to see if it's even working, this is one you can subscribe to without having to pay for it. So I'm giving some thought to adding what I call an incident RPZ, because for us it's no great cost to continue generating that content in perpetuity. You only need a window of about 3 days. PC clocks, it turns out, are not very reliable, so you need about a 72-hour window around the bad time-generated names in order to make sure that every PC, no matter how far off its clock is, will actually see that they see the policy that they're going to put in for those names. The second half of my time today I'm going to use to talk about the security information exchange. And I'll come back to this at that time, but the point is we're trying to aggregate sensor data from the field all over the world. I'll be asking you in about 20 minutes to... Nope, sorry, I don't want this talk yet. Go back to the previous PDF. Thank you. So I'll be asking you to run sensors. But the point is, we're aggregating sensor data about things happening all over the net, all the time, real time. We're not collecting PCAP files and sharing them anymore. This is all real time stuff. And it's my expectation that people who subscribe to this and look at the security information exchange as a data feed will be in a particularly good position to generate RPZ data either for their own use or for resale. So let's stop here and get questions and comments on response policy zones before I move to the next presentation. Microphone up front.
What version of Bind will you make patches available for? 9.7 or 10?
The question is, what version of Bind will have patches available? And the answer is in several forms. We have patches now for all of the extended service versions, the ESVs. When we put a given version of Bind out to pasture and say, we don't want to maintain that one anymore, it's, you know, we moved on. We set a 2-year time limit on how long we will continue to produce patches and security patches for it. So I think right now that is 9.4, 9.6 are the 2 ESVs, and then 9.7 is the current release. We didn't do an ESV for 9.5. And so right now I have patches for those 3 versions. We will be integrating this into most likely 9.7.3, which is the next point release. Taking an unusual step in 9.7 of adding functionality